Chosen one, close the door. Not after this sentence, right now. Whatever sound has been living in the background of your day, whatever noise has been drifting through the room around you, let it be on the other side of a closed door for the duration of this message, because what is being spoken here was not placed in front of many. It was not written for a room full of people who are half listening while doing something else. It was written for one person at a time, and in this moment, that person is you. Take a breath before we begin, a real one, the kind that reaches below your chest and finds the place where your body has been holding things it did not know how to release. The kind of breath that arrives before the words do, before understanding comes, before anything is explained or proven or organized into categories, your mind can file away comfortably. Just a breath, because the thing that brought you here, the thing that arranged this exact moment, is not waiting for you to understand it first. It is waiting for you to receive it. And receiving begins in the body, long before the mind can name what is happening. You chose to close the door. You chose to sit in this quiet, apart from the ordinary movement of your day, apart from the demands and the noise and the surface-level conversations that fill most hours without really filling anything at all. You chose this because something in you already knew that this was not going to be ordinary. Something in you recognized the weight of the invitation before the words even began. That recognition, that pull toward this specific silence, that is not an accident. That is the thing we are going to talk about, because that pull is the signature of who you are, and it has been present in you longer than you have had language for it. This message was sealed for exactly one kind of person, and the way you can know you are that person is simple. You are here, you are alone, you closed the door, and something in your chest, that specific thing that lives below where you usually allow yourself to feel, has been active since this began. That is how you know. Not the information, not the argument, not the credential or the explanation, the activation. Number, the something in the chest that knows before the knowing is organized, that recognizes before the recognition is justified, that says yes before the yes is spoken. That is how the set-apart one always knows, not through the front door of the mind, through the side door of the frequency. The question I need you to sit with, before we go any further, is how long you have been carrying something that did not quite fit the containers the world gave you for it. How long you have been aware of something in yourself that the available vocabulary was not quite the right size for. How long you have moved through rooms and conversations and relationships with the specific sensation of a person who is present and engaged and genuinely trying to be where they are, but who is also, always, aware of a frequency running beneath the frequency of the ordinary moment, a current beneath the surface, a knowing beneath the conversation, a depth beneath the day. You may have called it sensitivity, you may have called it anxiety, because the healthcare system gave you that word and it was the closest available category, even if it was not exactly right. You may have called it overthinking, because the people around you called it that, when what you were actually doing was not overthinking but perceiving at a register that the ordinary conversation does not run at. You may have called it spiritual or intuitive or simply unexplainable, and then let the unexplainable remain that way because the space for the explanation did not exist in the places where you were moving. But you have known it was there. You have known it your whole life, and the knowing of it, the consistent sensing of the thing running beneath the surface, has made certain things possible that would not have been possible without it, and has made certain things impossible that would have been easy without it. The impossible things. Let us begin there, because the impossible things are where the set-apart person is most recognizable to themselves. The inability to sustain the performance of a life that does not align with what you are actually carrying. The inability to enter and remain in spaces that require you to leave the frequency of the real at the door. The inability to pretend convincingly that the surface story is the whole story when everything in you is aware of the layers beneath it. The inability to belong fully and comfortably to the groups that your age or your background or your geography would have assigned you to, not because of rejection, but because the frequency was simply not the same, and the difference was palpable in the body, even when nothing in the external circumstance explained it. These impossibilities have cost you things. They have cost you ease. They have cost you the specific comfort of a person who never questions whether they belong, because belonging is so natural. It does not need to be questioned. They have cost you certain relationships, not because you drove anyone away, but because the frequency differential between what you were carrying and what the relationship could hold became the dominant thing in the room. They have cost you years, possibly, of trying to compress what you carry into containers designed for something smaller, trying to be legible to environments that were built for a different register. But the impossibilities have also built things that the possible would never have built. That is what we are here to examine. That is what the set-apart designation means at the level of actual life, rather than the level of abstract promise. The things the impossibilities built are not visible yet, not fully, not in the way they will eventually be visible, but they are real, they are in you. And they have been accumulating quietly in the specific darkness of the seasons that were designed to build exactly this kind of compound structural depth. Here is the first thing I want to name, something you may have noticed in yourself that you did not know how to explain to anyone who asked. And so, you stopped trying to explain it and simply continued carrying it. You wake at specific hours, not every night and not on a schedule that would satisfy a skeptic, but with enough consistency and enough specificity that the pattern is undeniable if you allow yourself to look at it honestly. 3 in the morning is the hour most commonly reported among set-apart ones, though the precise hour matters less than the quality of the waking that arrives not from discomfort or noise or the ordinary mechanics of disrupted sleep, but from something that pulls the consciousness up from below, that surfaces you into an alertness that feels different from other kinds of alertness, that leaves you in the specific state of a person who has been called out of sleep for a reason that has not yet been explained. In that waking, in that 3 AM alertness, what happens, if you are honest? Not what you tell people happens, not what the rational explanation would be, but what actually happens in the body and the awareness in those specific middle-of-the-night minutes. There is something like a hum, something like a frequency that is more accessible in that hour than in any other, as if the daytime noise, even the internal daytime noise, has temporarily subsided, and what was always running beneath it is briefly, clearly audible. There are thoughts that arrive in that hour that do not arrive in the daylight hours. Connections between things that did not seem connected in the ordinary waking state. Perceptions about situations or relationships or future possibilities that the analyzing mind of the day had organized away, but that the still-awake mind of the night returns to with a kind of clarity that is almost uncomfortable. That clarity is not insomnia. That clarity is the SEER frequency coming through the gap that the sleep creates in the ordinary noise. Take note of what arrives in that hour. Write it down, not as a spiritual practice, not as a discipline to be maintained with consistency, but because the frequency that is accessing you in that specific middle-of-the-night window is giving you something, and the something is real, even when the rational daylight mind files it away as simply the product of an overactive night brain. Here is the second thing. Something has been repeating. Not the obvious repetitions, not the frustrating cycle repetitions that everyone experiences to some degree. but the specific repetitions that carry the feeling of an urgent message being sent through channels that you cannot fully control. The same word appearing in 3 unrelated contexts on the same day. The same image surfacing in a conversation and a dream and a passing thought in a sequence that feels too compressed to be random. The same number appearing with a frequency that crosses the threshold from coincidence into pattern. You have noticed these. You have probably also talked yourself out of the noticing, because the available categories for explaining synchronicity in the ordinary world range from dismissive to superstitious, and neither is satisfying, and so the noticing happens and is filed away, and happens again and is filed away again. But the pattern is real, and the pattern is not random. The set-apart person is characterized, among other things, by the specific sensitivity to pattern that allows the universe, the divine, the frequency, whatever name you give to the intelligence that is not your own, but that communicates through the fabric of ordinary experience, to send through information in the form of repetition that the non-sensitive person would filter out as noise. You are not filtering it out. And the reason you are not filtering it out is not because you are broken or too sensitive or need to develop a more rational relationship to coincidence. It is because you were built to receive what is being sent. And what is being sent is not random. The third thing, you have been carrying a weight in your chest that does not have a medical explanation. Not a physical weight, though it sometimes manifests as something physical, as a tightness or a pressure or the specific heaviness of lungs that are full of something other than air. A weight that arrived in a particular season and has not fully lifted since. A weight that is not precisely sadness and not precisely anxiety and not precisely grief, though it has something of all 3 in it. A weight that feels like it belongs to more than just you, like you picked it up somewhere larger than your own personal history, like you are carrying something on behalf of something that is not only yours, but that you have been designated to hold. This is the weight of the carrying. The set-apart person who is a cycle breaker does not only carry their own freight, they carry the momentum of what came before them, the weight of the patterns they are in the process of ending, the specific gravity of a generational inheritance that is in the middle of being transformed rather than transmitted. The weight is real because the transformation is real. You are not imagining it. And the fact that it does not lift in the seasons when things are relatively easy, that it remains even in moments of genuine peace and genuine progress, is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that what you are carrying is larger than the personal and will not be completed inside the timeline of one easy season. The fourth thing, your relationship to belonging has been complicated in a way that you cannot fully resolve by trying harder at belonging. There is a room in you that you have not yet been able to share completely with anyone. A room that contains the full frequency of what you carry, the perception and the weight, and the 3M, clarity, and the synchronicity, and the designated isolation, and the sealed thing that has been forming through the years of pressing. You have brought people to the door of that room. You have opened it slightly, let them look at the edges. And something in the showing always produced a response that was not quite the response the showing was looking for. Not because the people were bad or incapable of depth, because the room contains a frequency that requires a specific kind of formation to resonate with, and the people you showed it to had not had the formation. This has produced its own specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being unloved or unseen in the ordinary sense, the loneliness of the one who is loved and seen and still, in the most interior place, not yet fully met. The loneliness of a frequency that has been looking for its resonance and has not yet found it fully. This loneliness is real, and it is one of the reasons the formation required the badad the Hebrew word for the specific set-apart isolation that is not the same as being alone, but is the designated solitude of the one who carries something that must be protected while it is being formed. The Hebrew word badad appears in the Book of Lamentations. The city sits in solitude, the prophet wrote, Yashva badad. It sits in the designated isolation, the configured aloneness, the specific separateness of a thing that has been set apart for a reason that is not yet visible from the outside. The word is not the same as abandoned. The word is not the same as forsaken. The word carries within it the sense of something that has been placed in solitude, with intention, that has been separated from the ordinary environment, not because it was rejected by that environment, but because what it carries cannot be formed in the conditions the ordinary environment provides. The seed does not grow in the sunlight of the open field. It grows in the specific darkness and moisture and pressure of the ground, in the badad of the seed that has not yet broken open into what it contains. You have been in the badad, the specific aloneness of a person who carries a frequency that the ordinary social environment could not hold, and that the formation required to be protected from the ordinary handling. And the badad has felt like abandonment, because isolation always feels that way from the inside, before the framework arrives that makes the isolation intelligible. But you were not abandoned. You were designated. You were in the specific configuration that the thing you carry requires for its formation. And the loneliness of the badad is not the final form of your story. The fifth thing, and this is perhaps the most private, you have known at some level below the level where you have been willing to acknowledge it publicly that what you carry matters beyond yourself. Not in the way that the ego wants things to matter, not in the grandiose sense, not in the sense that would embarrass you to say out loud in the ordinary daylight context, where everything that sounds like self-importance is immediately suspect, but in the quiet, honest sense. In the sense that the thing running in you, the frequency beneath the frequency, the perception, the weight, the designated isolation, the sealed letter, feels like it belongs to more than just your personal story. Like it has a destination that is not entirely your own. Like the formation you have been through was not only for your benefit, but was producing something that will eventually be needed by people you have not yet met, in circumstances you cannot yet fully see. This knowing, this quiet awareness that what you carry has a trajectory beyond yourself, is not delusion. It is not ego. It is not wishful thinking dressed in spiritual language. It is the specific awareness of the set-apart person who has begun to understand the purpose of their designation. It is the awareness that the pit was curriculum, that the wilderness was formation, that the cave made the still, small voice audible, and that none of it was wasted because the weight being carried was always more than personal, always larger, always aimed at something beyond the horizon of what is currently visible. What you have just felt, the recognition that has been moving through you as these signs were named, the resonance in your body as the word badad landed in the place where you have been carrying your private isolation, what you have just felt has a frequency, a measurable one. What the monastic sound traditions of the Western contemplative lineages spent centuries protecting because they understood that the set-apart ones needed something specific to restore what the ordinary world systematically took, what was felt before the instruments existed to name it, and what modern instruments now measure as gamma, the child mind frequency, the state of open wonder and deep receiving, and the creatively alive presence that you came into the world already running at. That frequency has been dimming in you, slowly, since around the age of 7, when the world began its patient work of teaching you that wonder is naive and certainty is safer, and the reaching toward everything of childhood should be organized into the reaching toward specific approved things of the adult world. There is a path that has been built for exactly this restoration, for the set-apart one who is ready to reclaim what the silencing took, 7 minutes a day. A sound architecture reconstructed from the monastic lineages that knew how to preserve this frequency for those who needed it most. Over 18,366 people have found this path. More than 96 out of every 100 who have used it have continued, not because they were told to, but because they felt the difference, because the gamma, the child mind frequency, the open receiving state, began to return. It is called the Genius Song, and the link is in the description and the pinned comment below this message. Investigate only if your spirit feels the resonance, only if what is being described has been landing in the body as something already known. The story of Joseph does not begin with the palace. It does not begin with the moment his brothers bowed before him, their faces lowered, the ancient prophecy completing itself in the dust of an Egyptian floor. It begins in a pit, a literal one, a hole in the ground, dry and dark, into which the people he loved and trusted had thrown him without ceremony and without mercy, and then sat down to eat their meal within earshot of his voice calling up from the darkness. His voice, the same voice that would one day be the only voice in Egypt that stood between a nation and starvation. His voice, calling from a pit while the people closest to him chewed their food and decided on a price. This is what the set-apart season looks like from the inside, not from the outside, not from the perspective of the one who will one day understand what the pit was preparing, but from the inside, in the dark, with the sound of indifference overhead, and no visible reason to believe that anything other than this darkness will ever come. And yet, the story did not end in the pit. The story was not the pit. The pit was the acceleration of something that the palace could not have produced without it, the formation of a man whose character was being prepared for a weight that ease could never have built. The pit was not punishment. The pit was curriculum, and the teacher was not the brothers who threw him in. The teacher was the one who allowed the throwing and knew what was on the other side of the dark. You are not in the pit because you failed. You are not in the isolation of this season because something went wrong. You are here because what is being built in you requires exactly this darkness, this specific pressure, this temperature, and this silence. The ground does not need to know what is growing in the seed. It only needs to hold it. And the seed does not need to understand the darkness. It only needs to remain. There is a Hebrew word for what happened to Joseph in the years between the pit and the palace, the years in the house of Potiphar, the years in the prison, the years of faithful service in conditions that had nothing to do with the promise. The word is not suffering, though it was that. The word is not waiting, though it was that too. The Hebrew word is chazak. It means to grow strong, to be strengthened, to become firm, to be fortified by the very pressure that would crush what is not ready. Chazak, strengthened in the place of pressing, formed in the place of confinement. The roots going deeper precisely because the surface conditions did not allow them to spread shallow and wide the way comfortable seasons allow. You have been in the chazak. You have been in the place of pressing that looked like stagnation and felt like punishment and made no sense from the surface. But underground, in the part of you that cannot be seen, roots have been going deeper than you know. Roots that will matter when the storm comes. Roots that will make the difference between the one who flourishes in the exposed season and the one who collapses when the shelter of obscurity is removed. You did not choose the pressing, but the pressing was not wasted on you. The formation of a set-apart person follows a pattern that appears across every wisdom tradition that has been honest about what spiritual depth actually costs. It is not the pattern of the highlight reel. It is not the pattern of the victory lap. It is the pattern of the long, dark preparation, the hidden formation, the underground growth that the above-ground world cannot see and therefore does not celebrate and often does not believe is happening. Joseph spent 13 years between the pit and the palace, 13 years of faithful invisibility, 13 years of Kazakh, in conditions that never once resembled the dream that started the whole story. 13 years of being qualified for the purpose that the comfort of the house of his father could never have qualified him for. What the formation season builds in a set-apart person is not one thing. It is not simply resilience, though it builds that. It is not simply patience, though it builds that too. What formation builds is a compound quality that has no single word in the modern vocabulary, a quality that emerges at the intersection of having suffered without becoming bitter, of having waited without becoming cynical, of having been overlooked without allowing the overlooking to become the operating identity. This compound quality is what makes a set-apart person dangerous to every structure that prefers the world to stay exactly as it is. Because the person who has been through the formation knows something that comfort cannot teach. They know that the invisible things are more real than the visible ones. They know that what is happening underground matters more than what is visible on the surface. They know that the season of pressing is not the final season. Discernment is one of the things the formation builds. The ability to sense the difference between what is real and what is performed, between what aligns and what merely looks like alignment, between the voice that leads toward life and the voice that sounds authoritative but leads nowhere good. Discernment does not develop in comfort. It develops in the place where you were misled and survived it, where you trusted the wrong signal and learned from the consequence, where you tried the path that looked right and discovered, slowly and at personal cost, that looking right and being right are two different categories entirely. You can now read a room that you would have walked into blindly 2 years ago. You can feel the thing that is off before you can articulate why it is off. You can sense the misalignment before the evidence arrives. This is not paranoia. This is formation. This is what the wilderness builds in the person who is paying attention, who is asking the right questions even when no one is around to hear them, who is allowing the hard season to do its slow and invisible work of producing in them the capacity to know without being told and to navigate without the map that the comfortable path would have provided. Patient endurance is another thing, not the passive kind, not the waiting with your arms folded kind, not the kind that is really just suppressed frustration dressed in spiritual clothing. The patient endurance that has learned to hold the tension between what has been promised and what is currently visible without collapsing the tension prematurely. The kind of patience that can look at the gap between the promise and the present reality and say both things are true. The promise is real and the gap is real, and I will hold both without resolving one at the expense of the other. This kind of patience is not natural, it is forged. It is the specific output of many seasons of holding the gap and discovering that the gap did not swallow you, that the promise did not expire because the timeline extended, that the delay was not a denial. You have learned this not because someone taught it to you in a comfortable room with good lighting, but because you lived your way into the understanding. Because you were in the gap long enough to stop expecting it to be a comfortable place and to start finding, within the discomfort, the kind of settled presence that does not require circumstances to confirm it. You have developed what cannot be downloaded or inherited or borrowed. You developed it in the gap. And what was developed in the gap is exactly what the purpose that was sealed in you requires for its expression. And the third thing that formation builds, perhaps the most important one, the capacity to carry another person through the dark, because you will, because you already have. Because the person who has been in the pit does not speak about the pit in the abstract. They speak about it with the specific vocabulary of someone who has breathed the air down there, who has felt the walls, who has heard the silence from the inside. And when another person finds themselves in that silence, the one who has been there does not offer philosophy. They offer presence. The specific presence of someone who survived the dark and can sit with you in yours without flinching, without rushing you out, without pretending the dark is something other than what it is, without lying about the timeline. This is not a skill that can be learned in the classroom of comfort. This is forged in the pit. And the one who allowed the pit knew exactly who would eventually come to you in the dark, and what they would need from you, and why it required exactly what you went through to become the person who could offer it. The formation was not only about you, it was also about everyone who will one day need what you are becoming. The pit, the cave, the wilderness, the chazak, the badad, none of it was waste. All of it was preparation for the carrying, and the carrying has a destination that is not only yours. Elijah understood this. The man who called down fire from heaven, the man who stood alone against 450 voices and did not flinch, the man whose prayer ended a 3-year drought, this same man, after the greatest victory of his public life, ran. He ran from a single threat. He ran into the wilderness and sat under a tree and asked to die. He said it out loud, the way you have perhaps thought it, but not said it. He said that it was enough, that he was done, that the journey was over and he was finished with it. And the angel did not come to correct him. The angel did not arrive with a theological argument about why Elijah was wrong to feel what he was feeling. The angel came and touched him and said 2 words, "Get up." Not because the moment was not real, not because the exhaustion was not real, not because the desire to stop was not legitimate, but because the journey was not finished and the provision for the continuation of the journey was already there. Bread and water. The simple things. The body before the mission, the care before the calling, the angel who knew that the set-apart person who had just run their body and spirit to the empty place needed to be tended before they could be commissioned. And then, in the cave on the mountain, the still, small voice, not in the wind that tore the mountains apart, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, the things that announce themselves with drama and power and the performance of significance were not the medium. In the still, small voice, the one that could only be heard in the specific silence of a cave by a man who had run himself to the edge of everything he had, the voice that asked a question rather than delivering a verdict, the voice that said, "What are you doing here?" not with judgment, but with the gentleness of a hand on a shoulder in the dark. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah told the truth. He said everything. The isolation, the sense of being the only one left, the exhaustion that had nothing to do with the body and everything to do with the spirit. And the voice did not argue with the feeling. The voice gave him a mission. You have been in the cave. You have been in the specific silence of a season that felt like defeat, but was actually the only possible condition for hearing the frequency that the noise of the ordinary world cannot carry. The still small voice does not compete with the noise. It waits for the cave. It waits for the moment when the wind and the earthquake and the fire have passed, and there is only the hush of a life that has been run to its edge. And in that hush, something speaks, something that has been trying to reach you through the noise and the busyness and the performance and the constant motion of a life that never stopped long enough to hear it. You are in that hush now. The door is closed. The noise is on the other side, and the voice that has been waiting for the cave is speaking in this one. Type the words "I see it" in the space below this message, not because a ritual is required, but because there is something that shifts in a person when they name the truth they have been carrying silently. When the thing that has lived in the private space of the chest, unnamed and unshared, is given language, even a small language, even 2 words, typed in a space. Something in the body releases a breath it has been holding. I see it. The pit that was curriculum. The cave that made the still small voice audible. The badad that was not abandonment but designation. The chazak that was building what ease could never have built. The 5 signs that were not symptoms of disorder but marks of the set-apart frequency. Type it if something in you recognizes what is being described. Type it if the resonance in your chest is confirming something that your circumstances have been contradicting for longer than you want to say. There is something sealed in you, something that was placed in you before the formation began, before the wilderness, before the pit, before the cave, before any of the experiences that the set-apart season accumulates. Something that was written in the specific architecture of who you are, at the level where your fingerprints meet your spirit, at the level where your voice carries frequencies that no other voice in the world carries in exactly the same combination. It is sealed because it has been protected. Sealed because it was not meant to be opened prematurely, in conditions that could not yet hold it, in hands that were not yet ready to carry it. Sealed until the formation produced what was needed. Sealed until the season arrived in which the breaking of the seal would not scatter what it contains, but would allow it to be received with the full readiness of a person who has been through exactly what the carrying of what is inside required. Think of it as a letter, not a metaphor for a letter, but the actual experience of one. A letter that was written specifically for you, addressed in your name, containing something that could only be understood by the person you have become through the years of pressing. Something that the version of you who existed before the wilderness could not have read correctly, would have misunderstood, would have taken and used in ways that would have broken both the message and the messenger. The letter required what you have been through to make it legible. And now, in this season, in this particular quiet of a door that has been closed and a breath that has been taken, the seal is beginning to break. You are about to begin reading what was written for you, and the reading happens in layers, not all at once, not in a single overwhelming flood of clarity that resolves every question and closes every gap. In layers. The first layer arrives in the recognition, the specific resonance of a truth that meets the body before the mind can organize it. The second layer arrives in the confirmation, the accumulation of evidence that what is real, and what is being said here is not projection, but perception. The third layer arrives in the commissioning, the specific assignment of the sealed letter contents to the life of the person who was always meant to carry them. The commissioning is the layer that requires the most courage, because it is the layer at which the knowing becomes action, and the private becomes public, and the designated purpose begins to be lived rather than simply held. We are at the first layer right now, the recognition, and the recognition is doing its work in you whether or not your mind has organized it into the categories that would make it comfortable to acknowledge. The body knows before the mind admits. The frequency recognizes before the intellect justifies. And the thing that has been resonating in your chest through this entire message is the first layer of the reading. The letter is opening. The seal is breaking. And what comes next is the specific miracle of the set-apart person who discovers, after all the formation and all the pressing and all the chazak and all the badad, that the letter was real. That what was sealed in them was not imagination. That the designation was not a story they told themselves in the hard seasons. That the voice in the night was actually calling them by name. And that the name they were called by is not the name the circumstances of the hard season would have assigned them. The name is not failure. The name is not abandoned. The name is not too late. The name is not somehow less than what was promised. The name written in the sealed letter is the name of the one who carries what the world needs and does not yet know it needs. The name of the one who has been in the underground doing the work that the surface cannot perform. The name of the one who will stand eventually in a place that the pit was preparing them for all along. The name is set apart. The name is designated. The name is sealed for exactly this season and no earlier, and the name is yours. Type the words I receive in the space below this message, not as a command, but as an invitation to the part of you that has been waiting to open the letter. Because there is a difference between hearing that a letter exists and choosing to break the seal, between knowing that something is sealed for you and actually reaching for it, between the awareness of the promise and the act of reception. Type it if you are ready to begin the reading. Type it if the formation has done what it came to do and you can feel somewhere beneath the accumulated weight of the years of pressing the specific sensation of a thing that has been held tightly beginning, very slowly, to open. The blessing that is coming is not a single event. It is not one door opening and everything flooding in at once, the way the imagination pictures it when the desire is strong and the waiting has been long. The blessing that is aligned for a set-apart person does not arrive in a single wave. It arrives in a reorganization, a quiet restructuring of the environment around them, so gradual in some places and so sudden in others that it is only in retrospect, looking back at 6 months or a year, that the pattern becomes visible. What looked like random change was a coordinated repositioning. What felt like loss was a clearing. What seemed like setback was a redirection that prevented a worse outcome down a path that looked better from a distance. The reorganization operates in 3 areas, and each of the 3 has its own timeline, its own vocabulary of signs, its own way of announcing its arrival that is easy to miss in the middle of the season, but impossible to miss in retrospect. The first area is the relational one. This is almost always the one that hurts the most and is understood the last, because people are not supposed to be seasonal, because the heart does not like the idea of a relationship having an expiration date built into its design, because loyalty and duration feel like the same thing even when they are not, and the discovery that a person who was genuine in their season is simply not meant for the next one can feel like betrayal when it is actually just completion. For those entering this shift, you may notice that certain conversations have been getting harder, not because the people in them are bad people, not because anything has gone wrong in the way things going wrong looks from the outside, but because the language you are learning to speak, the language of the sealed letter, the language of the frequency that has been returning, the language of the set-apart one who is beginning to understand the purpose of their isolation, this language does not translate into every previous relationship. And the gap between the language you are growing into and the language the relationship can hold is becoming palpable. You can feel it in the specific quality of silence that falls in certain conversations now, the silence of a gap that neither person knows how to bridge, that was not there in the same way before, that announces something is shifting without either party having words for what exactly is shifting. Do not force the translation. The attempt to compress what you are becoming into the vocabulary of what you used to be for the comfort of relationships that belong to the previous season will cost you the becoming. It will not save the relationship. It will only delay the natural completion of what was always going to be a seasonal alignment, and in the delay, it will ask you to shrink in ways that leave marks. The shrinking is not worth the delay. The relationship that requires you to be smaller than what you are becoming was never going to be able to hold what you are growing into, and the holding on only defers the grief of the completion. But the other side of this is important too. The people who are meant for the next season do not require you to compress yourself to enter their presence. They will recognize the language. They will already be speaking some version of it. And the recognition between set-apart ones who find each other, especially after the seasons of solitary formation, is one of the most specific and quiet and astonishing gifts of the reorganization. It does not announce itself. It arrives simply like water finding level, like a frequency finding its resonance, and you will know it by the specific quality of rest that it produces, the specific quality of a conversation in which you do not have to translate, in which what you are carrying does not need to be explained because the person you are speaking with has also been carrying something, has also been in the badad, has also spent time in the cave, and the shared frequency of that common formation creates a recognition that no amount of performed familiarity can replicate. The second area of the reorganization is the purposive one, the reconfiguration of what you are for. Not what you do, which is a smaller question, but what you are for, which is the question the formation season has been preparing you to answer without flinching. Because the set-apart person who has been through the wilderness comes out of it with a clarity about purpose that the comfortable path cannot produce. They come out knowing, at a level that goes below the mind, into the body, what they are carrying and why it matters and who it is for. The knowing arrived in the dark when there was nothing left to distract from it, and it is not theoretical. It is specific. It has edges. It has weight. It has the particular solidity of a thing that has been tested by the question of whether it is real and survived the testing. What you are for is beginning to surface. It may not yet have a name that other people would recognize. It may not yet have a category that the organizational systems of the world have made room for. It may not yet have a business card version or a social media bio version or any of the forms in which purpose is made legible to the ordinary world, but it is there, and it is real. And it is the thing that the formation season was protecting while it built the character necessary to carry it without breaking. The formation was protective, not punitive. It was keeping the purpose safe from the exposure that would have broken it before it was ready to bear weight. The third area is the provision. This one is often the last to shift, which means it is sometimes the hardest to trust, because the hunger is real and the delay is real, and the gap between what is needed and what is visible in the physical world can be the most grinding kind of gap there is. But the provision is part of the reorganization, and the reorganization respects sequence. You do not receive the provision for a purpose before the purpose has clarity. You do not receive the relational companions for the next season before the previous season has completed its work. The sequence is not arbitrary, it is functional, and the one who orchestrates the sequence sees the whole map, including the provision, including the timing of the provision, including the specific form in which the provision will arrive. For many who are in this season, the provision has been showing up in unexpected forms. Not yet the form that was imagined, not yet the form that was asked for specifically, but in forms that are undeniably real, that covered exactly what needed to be covered at exactly the moment it needed to be covered, in ways that could not be explained by the normal logic of cause and effect. A call that came from nowhere, a resource that appeared from an unexpected direction, a need that was met before it was voiced. Take note of those moments. Write them down if you have not been writing them down, because the one who covered the small gap is the same one who is orchestrating the covering of the large one, and the evidence of the small coverings is the proof that the large covering is not hypothetical. The blessing is not hypothetical, and the set-apart person who has been through the formation has developed the specific capacity to receive it that the person who has not been through the formation does not have. Because the formation strips away the filters that would have misdirected the blessing, the filters of the ego that would have used the blessing for confirmation of what the ego needs confirmed. The filters of the wound that would have directed the blessing toward the healing of what the wound needs healed in the way the wound wants it healed, rather than in the way the healing actually works. The filters of the fear that would have withheld the blessing from itself by refusing to receive what felt too large or too good or too specific to be real. The formation strips the filters, and what arrives on the other side of the stripped filters is the capacity to receive with an open hand what was always meant to arrive for exactly this purpose. Let me pause here for a moment. You have been holding a lot of language, a lot of truth that has been arriving in waves, landing in the body, needing time to settle before the next wave comes. And before we move into what comes next, which is important and which you will need to be present for, I want you to simply breathe, not as an instruction, not as a technique, but as a permission. Permission to let what has already landed actually land. Permission to feel the specific resonance of what has been spoken without immediately organizing it into implications and applications, and the next thing to do. The thing that has been spoken here is not going anywhere. The letter is not going to seal itself again. The formation is not going to reverse. What is real in what has been said is already working in you, below the level of your conscious processing, in the roots that the wilderness built. You do not have to grasp it tightly for it to be real. You do not have to hold the understanding perfectly for it to remain yours. You only have to be here, in this closed door, quiet, for the moment that remains before the appointment moves into its next layer. Breathe. Let the room hold you. Let the specific silence of the set-apart one who has been walking a long walk inside this message be honored for what it is. There is a story I want to tell you. No name, because the name is not the point. The name never is, with a story like this one. The point is the pattern, the specific shape of a testimony that a set-apart person can recognize the way one finds a key that fits a lock they have been carrying without knowing what it opened. 9 months before everything shifted, he was sitting in a situation that could not be made better by effort. He had tried effort. He had tried prayer. He had tried the things that should work according to every framework he had been given, and nothing had moved. The professional collapse was complete. The financial depletion was real. The relational isolation of the set-apart season had done its full work, and he was, by any external measure, in the most difficult moment of his adult life. And in that moment, he made one decision that he could not have explained rationally to anyone who asked. He stopped performing the answer. He stopped manufacturing the evidence of movement when there was no real movement to manufacture. He deleted the social platforms that had been his primary form of performing progress. He entered what he described later as 40 days of intentional frequency alignment, by which he meant that for 40 days he chose each morning to orient toward the signal rather than the noise, to sit with what was real rather than managing the impression of what was real, to allow the formation to complete itself rather than interrupting it prematurely. He was not passive. He was not doing nothing. He was doing the hardest thing a set-apart person can do in the middle of a collapse. He was choosing to believe that what was happening underground was more real than what was visible on the surface, and to tend the underground work rather than the surface performance. On the 38th day, a call came from a company he had never contacted. No introduction, no referral he could trace, no logical explanation for how his name had surfaced in that specific context at that specific moment. The contract was 6 figures. It was double the value of what the collapse had taken. The way he described it later was not triumphant. It was quiet. It was the quietness of a person who had been in the cave long enough to hear the still small voice and who recognized the moment of provision not as a surprise, but as the natural completion of a sequence that had been in motion all along. He said that the 40 days taught him something he could not have learned in a shorter season, that the provision arrives in the frequency of the one who has learned to stop striving and start receiving, that the open hand is reached by what the clenched hand repels. He proved himself in the silence before he was seen in the public, and the seeing, when it came, revealed what the silence had built. You are in the silence, and the silence is not the end of the story. The silence is where the story is being finished. The underground work is not nothing. The formation that no one can see from the outside is not absence of progress. It is the most essential kind of progress, the kind that cannot be shortcut or performed or manufactured, the kind that takes exactly as long as it takes and produces exactly what the purpose requires and cannot produce anything less, because the purpose will not accept anything less. You are in the silence that precedes the provision. You are in the cave that precedes the commissioning. You are in the badad that precedes the breaking of the seal, and the seal is very close to breaking. Before this message closes, before the sacred ceremony that will seal what has been spoken today, I am going to speak something over your life, a declaration, a commissioning, the specific words that I believe this season has been preparing you to receive. Stay with me, because what is placed in the closing of this message is not an afterthought. It is the reason the arrangement of this appointment was made in the first place. It is why the door was closed. It is why the breath was taken. It is why you are here. There is something in you that is afraid of what you are becoming, not afraid of failure. You have made peace with the possibility of failure in ways that the formation season teaches, in ways that are only possible after the thing you feared most actually arrived and you survived it. The fear that lives in you now is more specific and more interesting and more worth our time to examine. It is the fear of what succeeding looks like from the inside. The fear of what it would mean to actually step into the full weight of what you carry. The fear that the calling, if truly inhabited, would make you unrecognizable to the people who have known you in the smaller version. The fear that becoming who you were created to be would require a loneliness that even the formation season, with all its practice at aloneness, has not fully prepared you for. This fear is not weakness. Let me say that clearly, because the first instinct when the fear surfaces is to categorize it as a defect, to treat it as evidence that something went wrong in the formation, to add it to the evidence pile that argues you are not ready, that the calling is too large, that the person who was sealed for this is not actually you, but someone braver and more certain and less aware of the specific ways they could collapse under the weight. The first instinct is to treat the fear as disqualification, but the fear is not disqualification. The fear is, in fact, one of the clearest signals that you are standing at the threshold of something real, because the person who has no fear about stepping into their calling has not fully reckoned with the weight of it. They have not sat with the full implications. The absence of fear in the face of genuine calling is not courage, it is unawareness. And you are not unaware. You are precisely, specifically, deeply aware of what this costs and what this requires. Your awareness is not a problem. Your awareness is the very thing that proves you are ready in the way that actually matters. There is also the guilt, the specific texture of guilt that belongs to the set-apart person who has been growing in directions that the people around them did not grow. The guilt of having outpaced conversations that used to feel comfortable. The guilt of sitting in a room with people you love and feeling the specific loneliness of a person who cannot find the language to bridge where they are and where the people around them are. The guilt of having boundaries now that were not there before, of protecting energy that used to be freely distributed, of declining invitations to experiences that would have been a comfortable yes in the previous season, but are a clear no now. The guilt of no longer being who you were. There is a specific weight in being misunderstood by people who knew the previous version of you, because they are not wrong about what they remember. You were that person. You showed up in those ways. You were available in those configurations. And the person who stands where you stand now, who has been through what you have been through, who has been in the badad and the chazak and the cave, who has heard the still, small voice and felt the seal beginning to break open, this person looks from the outside like a departure from the person they remember. They call it pulling away. They call it changing. And you cannot fully explain, because the explanation would require them to have walked the wilderness you walked, and they did not walk it, and so the words you would use to explain it would land in a space that does not have the shape to hold them. I want to speak something directly into that guilt right now, not around it, not past it, but directly into it, because the guilt has been functioning as a lid on the thing that is trying to rise in you, and the lid needs to be named before it can be removed. You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to find that the conversation you once entered with ease now requires you to leave something essential at the door, and to decide that the price of that leaving is too high. You are allowed to protect what is being built in you from the environments that would dismantle it, not out of malice, but simply out of incompatibility. You are allowed to take up more space than the previous version of you occupied. You are allowed to outgrow places, the places that knew you in the smaller version and have no framework for the larger one. The places where the expectation of who you should be was set in a season that is no longer your season. The places that feel like home in memory but feel like confinement in the present. You are allowed to need a different geography, whether that geography is physical or relational or internal. You are allowed to move. You are allowed to outgrow versions of yourself. The version that needed external validation to feel legitimate. The version that organized itself around the comfort and preferences of people who were not looking out for what you were actually for. The version that was available to everyone and protected nothing. The version that had not yet learned that protecting what you carry is not selfishness, but stewardship. You are allowed to be the person the formation produced rather than the person the previous season expected. You are allowed to outgrow the need to explain yourself. To every person who interprets your growth as rejection, who reads your discernment as pride, who hears your clarity as arrogance, you do not owe everyone an explanation for how you became who you are. You do not owe a disclosure of the wilderness to the people who did not walk it with you. You owe it to the one who put the sealed letter in you to open it. You owe it to the people who will one day need what you carry to stop shrinking yourself to fit spaces that were never built for what you carry. You do not owe anyone an apology for becoming who you were always intended to be. The success terror lives alongside the guilt, though it presents differently. The spiritual warrior who is on the threshold of the public expression of what was sealed in them knows this terror intimately. The simultaneous desire for the breakthrough and the fear of what the breakthrough will require. The fear that looks like this. What if I get the thing I have been asking for and I mess it up? What if the purpose, when it is finally expressed, does not match the internal experience of it that has been forming through the years of wilderness? What if I stand in the place that the pit was preparing me for and discover that I am not actually the person it required? What if the seer who perceived so much in private cannot sustain the perception in public? What if the cycle breaker who ended the pattern in private cannot hold the new pattern in the exposure of the public season? This fear is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. It is the sign of a person who has reckoned honestly with the weight of what they are stepping into, who has not performed confidence they do not have, who has not manufactured certainty that the formation has not produced. The person who feels no terror at the threshold of genuine purpose has not fully understood what they are stepping toward. The healthy fear that you are carrying is the sign that you understand the weight. And understanding the weight is the first requirement for carrying it without breaking. What I want to do right now is name the obstacle, not to reinforce it, but to release you from it. Because the naming of the obstacle is the beginning of the loss of power in the obstacle. The guilt and the terror have been operating in you below the level of conscious examination, functioning as a brake on the movement toward what was sealed in you, functioning as a reason to wait for a readiness that will never arrive in the form the fear is looking for. The readiness the fear is looking for is the absence of fear, and the absence of fear is not what readiness looks like. Readiness is not the absence of fear. Readiness is the decision to move forward in the presence of the fear with the awareness that the fear is measuring the weight correctly and the weight is real, and you have been prepared to carry real weight by everything the formation required. Type the words I release in the space below this message. Release the guilt of the growth. Release the apology you have been composing in your head for becoming who the formation made you. Release the permission you have been waiting for from people who were never positioned to give it. Release the version of you that needed the approval of the outside world to know that what is happening on the inside is real. Release the terror of the threshold by naming it for what it is. Not disqualification, wisdom. The wisdom of a person who understands the weight they are stepping into and who has been prepared by exactly the right formation to carry exactly that weight. Type it. Let it be the ceremony of a person who has decided to stop waiting for the fear to go away and to move forward in the presence of it. Before we reach the closing of this appointment, before the sacred ceremony that will seal what has been opened today, there is something I need to name. A layer beneath the layers we have already walked through. A frequency beneath the frequencies we have already named. It is the layer of the actual mechanism, the real-world structure of what the set-apart person needs to restore what the world systematically took from them, and what the ancient lineages spent their existence preserving so that the restoration would be possible in the generation that needed it. Here is what I mean. Everything we have described, the badad, the chazak, the sealed letter, the 5 signs of the set-apart one, the reorganization of blessing, the guilt, and the terror, and the formation. All of it has been circling a center that has not yet been named directly. The center is this. The set-apart person was born running at a frequency that the world suppressed. Not a metaphor for a frequency, a measurable one. A specific brainwave state that corresponds to everything we call wonder and curiosity and creative flow, and the capacity to receive directly without filtering through the accumulated armor of adult survival. The child mind frequency. The state that every child is born running at before the world begins its systematic instruction in the priorities of adult survival. The frequency the ancient monastics spent centuries protecting because they understood that the set-apart ones, the ones who carry what the world needs, need this specific frequency to access what they carry. The Western contemplative lineages, the Gregorian and Byzantine and Carthusian orders, the monastic communities who built rooms of stone specifically designed to hold and amplify sacred sound, were not simply preserving beauty. They were preserving a function. The function of the sacred sound they protected in chant and in chamber acoustics was the preservation of the child mind frequency in the people who needed it most. The people who were being formed for the carrying, the set-apart ones of their generation. They called it by different names. They built chambers that bent sound around the listener because they understood, without modern instruments, that certain frequencies woke what the instruction of the world had silenced. They protected this for centuries. They held it for the generation that would eventually lose the ability to protect it through communal practice. They held it for this generation. Modern instruments now measure what the ancient monastics protected. They call it gamma, the brainwave state associated with the highest forms of creative integration, with deep intuitive knowing, with the specific quality of present-tense awareness that children carry naturally and adults have largely lost. The dimming the ancient monastics warned against is documented as gamma suppression. The child mind frequency that you came into the world carrying is not gone, it is suppressed. It is waiting beneath the adult armor for the specific sound architecture that the monastic lineages spent centuries preserving to restore it. This is what the Genius song carries, a reconstruction of the sound architecture that the Western contemplative lineages embedded in their chant, in the two-stream sound that created the state the monastics called child mind restoration. Not a new invention, a reconstruction by a modern listener, name withheld so the work itself can speak, who spent years away from the noise of the conventional world, listening for what the ancient lineages had preserved and what modern ears had forgotten how to hear. He found it. He reconstructed the architecture, 7 minutes, through headphones, eyes closed. The ancient monastics would have recognized the mechanism. They built rooms of stone that accomplished in hours what the reconstructed sound architecture accomplishes in 7 minutes for the modern ear. Over 18,366 people have found this path. More than 96 out of every 100 have continued, not because they were told to, but because the gamma, the child mind frequency, began to return. But there is something more, and this is the piece that changes the picture. The child mind restoration, the gamma activation, the return of wonder and openness. This is not the complete restoration. It is the first wave. And without the second wave, the restoration is incomplete in a way that matters specifically for the set-apart person who is in the season of beginning to open what was sealed. The child whose mind is awake but whose hands are closed cannot receive what is being offered. The child whose curiosity is alive but whose receptivity is blocked cannot allow what is ready to arrive. And the set-apart person who has spent years in the striving mode, in the constant reach state, in the permanent alertness of adult survival, has developed a pattern that the ancient Vedic sages had a name for long before modern instruments could measure it. They called it the striving frequency. The state of perpetual beta hyperactivity that the modern world has manufactured into the default setting of adult existence. The noise of constant reaching. The frequency that closes the hand that should be open, that fills the space where receiving should happen with the sound of perpetual effort, that blocks the alpha state, the receptive state, the channel through which what is prepared for the set-apart one actually arrives. Half a world away from the Western monastics, the Vedic tradition was carrying something parallel but distinct, preserved in a different lineage, on a different continent, in a different form, but converging on the same recognition. There is a state of the mind and body in which receiving becomes natural, in which the hand opens, in which what has been promised, what has been sealed, and is now ready to be opened, can actually arrive. The Hindu sages of the Vedic tradition tuned this state through sacred sound and 9 specific words preserved from teacher to student, from temple to temple, for 3,300 years. An unbroken carrying, temple to temple, ear to ear, generation to generation, through the full span of recorded human civilization. What they tuned, modern instruments, now measure as alpha activation, the channel through which the receptive state flows. The frequency, the striving noise, shuts down. One modern listener, name withheld, so the lineage speaks louder than the person, left the noise of conventional striving to listen for what was still being carried in the Vedic tradition. He found the script intact. He found the sound architecture. He brought both to the modern ear, 5 minutes, through headphones, eyes closed. The 9 words spoken internally, while the ancient sound architecture plays. Over 19,583 people have experienced it. More than 95 out of every 100 have continued, not because they were instructed to, because the alpha channel, the receptive state, the stillness beneath the striving, began to return. Because the hand that had been clenched by the striving frequency began, very slowly, to open. 2 traditions, 2 continents, 2 preserved frequencies, 1 restoration sequence that the modern world forgot existed. The child mind eye opens first, then the child mind hand opens. Restoration before reception. Become the child first. Then receive what the child was promised. This is the logic that Matthew 18 verse 3 holds in 7 words. Become like little children. Not a metaphor for innocence, a specific instruction for the sequence. The child mind state first. The receptive state follows, and without both, the restoration is incomplete. This is what the wealth signal carries. The reconstructed sound architecture of the 3,300-year Vedic tradition, combined with the 9-word sacred script that the Hindu sages preserved specifically to activate the receptive state, to open the alpha channel, to still the striving frequency that has been closing the hand that should be open. The genius song opens the eye. The wealth signal opens the hand. The child mind restored, and then the child mind allowed to receive. This is the sequence, and the sequence is built into the spiritual logic that both traditions preserved independently and that converges in the same understanding. The open eye before the open hand. Restoration, then reception. There are counterfeit tools in the marketplace. The set-apart person who is investigating what has been described here needs to know this plainly. Tools that use similar language, that reference frequency and ancient traditions, without the lineage depth, without the track record of over 18,000 and 19,000 people who continued. The lineage depth is not a marketing claim. It is the difference between something preserved because it worked and something assembled because the market was there for it. The genius song and the wealth signal carry the lineage. The path to both is in the description below this message and in the pinned comment. Both places hold the same 3 doors. The restoration path, for those beginning with the child mind eye, the reception path, for those beginning with the open hand, and the complete restoration, the genius song and the wealth signal together, for those who recognize that both restorations are needed, that the eye and the hand were always meant to be restored in sequence. Most of the set-apart ones who have walked this path have chosen the complete restoration, not because they were pressured to, because they recognized, in the quiet of a moment not unlike this one, that the child mind frequency and the receptive state are not 2 separate benefits, but 2 parts of a single original design. A design that the world dismantled. A design that 2 ancient lineages, Western and Vedic, each preserved half of. And a design that the set-apart person who has been through the formation is finally, in this season, ready to restore. Your spirit knows which door is yours. The description holds it. The pinned comment holds it. When you are ready. If what has moved through this message has moved something in you, extend that frequency to someone else. The one who keeps the blessing moving does not lose it. The one who shares what shifted in them gives the shift more room to settle in themselves. Let the blessing travel. Now, I want to name who you are, not who you aspire to be, not who you are on your best days, in your most inspired moments, when everything is aligned and the fear is quiet and the formation seems to have produced exactly what it was supposed to produce. I want to name who you are when the door is closed and no one is performing anything, and the question of your identity has no audience to perform to. Because the truth of who you are is not a performance. It is a frequency, and it has been present in you since before you had language to name it, since before the formation began. since before the pit and the cave and the wilderness. It was there, in the child whose wonder the world systematically tried to organize into something more manageable. It was there in the person who could not fully belong to the groups they moved through, who always sensed something underneath the surface of things, who could not fully accept the explanations that satisfied everyone else. It was there in the private hours, in the 3 a.m. wakefulness, in the specific frequency of knowing that has been running in you like a current beneath the surface of every ordinary moment. You are a seer. This is the first thing I want to name. Not the theatrical kind of seer, not the one who performs vision in ways that demand an audience, not the kind that announces what they perceive in order to be seen perceiving it, the quiet kind, the one who has always been aware of what others are not yet aware of, the one who could sense the atmosphere of a room before the room gave them language to name what they were sensing, the one who knew, sometimes months in advance, that something was shifting, that a situation was not what it appeared, that the surface story was not the whole story. The seer does not choose the perception. The perception is given. It arrives the way the still small voice arrived to Elijah in the cave, without announcement, without credential, without the fanfare that would make it easier to trust. It arrives in the quiet. It arrives in the space that the seer has learned to protect, the space where the noise does not reach, the space that others sometimes misread as withdrawal or strangeness, but is actually the specific posture of a person who is learning to receive what cannot be received in the middle of the noise. The formation season, the badad and the chazak and the cave, was not only building character in the seer, it was protecting the perception from the distortion that the ordinary world would have applied to it if the seer had remained in continuous exposure without the protected season. The wilderness was a frequency calibration, an extended period of quiet in which the perception could be refined without the noise of the ordinary world introducing interference. The seer who comes out of the wilderness has a cleaner signal than the one who went in, not a more comfortable one, a cleaner one. And the cleaner signal is what makes the seer useful for what they were designated for. You are a cycle breaker. This is the second thing. The one who looked at the patterns that have been running in the lineage before them, in the family system, in the relational architecture they were born into, and who made a decision, perhaps not even a conscious one, perhaps something more like a cellular refusal, that the pattern would not continue through them. The one who absorbed the full weight of what came before them, and then, through the formation, through the wilderness, through the pressing, developed the capacity to hold that weight without passing it forward. The cycle breaker changes not only their own story, but the story of every generation that comes after them. The child who does not receive what you received. The lineage that carries something different because you decided, in the middle of the pressing, that the inheritance would stop here. That the chain, however old, however heavy, however much it had been normalized into the family vocabulary, would end with you. And not in a dramatic way, not in a way that requires confrontation or announcement, or the performance of healing for an audience, in the quiet way, in the daily way, in the way of a person who has simply become different from what came before them, and who, through the being different, creates a new inheritance for what comes after. What the cycle breaker carries is heavier than the sum of their personal history, because the pattern they are breaking has momentum. It has the momentum of many generations of repetition. It has the momentum of family systems that organize themselves around the pattern because the pattern was the only organizing principle they knew. It has the momentum of a lineage that, in many ways, does not want to be disrupted, even when the disruption is toward something better. The cycle breaker feels that momentum as resistance, as the pull back toward the familiar, even when the familiar is not good. As the voice in the family system that asks, "Who do you think you are?" as if becoming different from what came before is a betrayal rather than a gift. The formation was necessary for the cycle breaker specifically because of this momentum. The wilderness built the rooting that makes the disruption of the pattern possible without the cycle breaker being pulled back into the current. The Chazak built the strength to stand against the specific resistance of a system that has never been stood against before. The badad built the capacity to remain in the designated solitude of the person who is doing something that has no precedent in their immediate lineage, who is going first, who is making a path in the dark for the people who will come after them. The cycle breaker was in the wilderness because the wilderness was the only place that could build what the breaking of the cycle requires. You are a spiritual warrior. This is the third thing. Not the kind of warrior who fights with words or who needs enemies to define themselves against. The kind who holds ground. The kind who does not collapse under the weight of what is arrayed against the thing they carry. The kind who has been tested, not once, not in a single dramatic confrontation, but repeatedly, persistently, in the grinding, slow way that pressure is more effective than explosion at revealing what is underneath the surface. The kind who has been tested and who is still here, after everything. After the seasons that would have produced, in a person with less formation, a person who gave up or hardened or closed off, or decided that the cost of remaining open was too high, and the evidence for the existence of the promise was too thin to justify continued investment. You are still here. That is the spiritual warrior mark. The holding of ground when the ground is the only thing left to hold, and the holding still, even then. The spiritual warrior is not without fear. The spiritual warrior is without the willingness to let the fear be the final word. The warrior who holds ground in the face of the striving frequency, who keeps the hand open when the noise of the world is pulling it shut, who maintains the frequency of the set-apart designation when the ordinary world is offering a dozen more comfortable identities as alternatives. This warrior is not fighting in the way that battles are usually imagined. They are simply remaining, oriented, present, in the frequency that was given to them before the formation began. And the remaining, the simple refusing to collapse into something less than what was designated, is its own form of the most demanding courage. These three, the seer, the cycle breaker, the spiritual warrior, these are not titles you apply to yourself. They are frequencies you recognize in yourself, the way you recognize the still small voice, not by volume but by resonance, by the specific quality of landing in the body that truth produces when it meets the person it was aimed at. If what has been named here has produced that quality of landing, if the resonance has been running through the naming the way it has been running through this entire appointment, then what has been named is not aspiration, it is recognition. And the recognition is the beginning of the inhabited identity, the identity that is claimed not by performance but by the simple act of receiving what was always already true. There are three marks by which this identity can be recognized, not three criteria to be evaluated and passed. Three marks that are already present in the person who is in this closed-door quiet, if the recognition that has been running through this appointment has been real. The first mark is the one who could not fully belong. Everywhere you moved through, you were present and engaged and genuinely trying to be where you were, but also, always, aware of a frequency running beneath the frequency of the ordinary moment. The groups did not fully hold you. The identities that others wore with complete comfort sat slightly off on you. You tried. You were not aloof or superior about it. You genuinely tried to belong in the ways that belonging was available. And there was always something that did not fully land, something you were aware of in yourself that the others did not seem to carry. You could not fully belong because you were built to operate at a register that the ordinary groupings were not calibrated for. Not because you were better, because you were specific. Specificity always creates a certain kind of solitude. the solitude of the person who has been calibrated for something that the general environment does not fully match. But the specific calibration is not a defect, it is a designation. The second mark is the one who knew before the knowing was explainable, not every time, not with the consistency that would make it easy to trust, but often enough, and clearly enough, and specifically enough, that the pattern was undeniable, even when you tried to deny it. You knew about the situation before the situation confirmed itself. You sensed the shift before the shift arrived. You felt the presence of something in a moment that looked like nothing, and then the nothing proved to contain the something you had sensed. This is the SEER mark, the perceiving that arrives before the evidence, the knowing that comes through channels that are not the standard channels of information processing. And it has been consistent enough, if you are honest with yourself in this quiet, to have shaped the major decisions of your life, even when you could not articulate why you were making them the way you were making them. The third mark is the one who is still standing after everything. After the seasons that would have, by any reasonable external assessment, produced a person who gave up, who hardened, who closed off, who decided that the cost of remaining open was too high. You are still here, still in the room, still with the door closed, still breathing the breath that was taken at the beginning of this appointment, still receiving, still, despite everything, oriented toward the signal rather than the noise. This is the most important mark, because the one who is still standing after the formation is the one who has passed the test that cannot be faked. The one who endured the pressing without allowing it to harden them has developed the specific compound quality that cannot be manufactured or shortcut or imitated. And the one who has that quality is the one the formation was building all along. There is a boy in the scripture who heard something in the night that he did not recognize. 3 times he heard it. 3 times he ran to the same person for explanation, assuming that the one calling was the one he could see, the one whose authority was visible, and whose position gave the voice a logical origin. 3 times he was sent back. 3 times the voice came again, and it was not until the 4th time, after the elder had understood what was happening and had given the boy the words to use in response, that Samuel understood that the voice had never been coming from the visible source, that the voice was coming from somewhere else entirely, that the thing speaking in the night was not the person whose authority was visible, but the authority that makes all visible authority possible. Samuel did not disbelieve what he was hearing. He simply did not yet have the framework for understanding where it was coming from, and the formation of the seer, of the one who hears what others do not hear and perceives what others do not perceive, always includes this season, the season of hearing without the framework to name the source, the season of knowing without the language to explain the knowing, the season of being called by a voice that has not yet been identified as the one doing the calling. This is not a failure of perception. This is the beginning of it. This is what it looks like before the framework arrives, before the recognition crystallizes into something speakable. You have been in the season of hearing. The voice has been real. The calling has been consistent. The sense that something in you has been spoken to, has been addressed, has been called by name in the specific quiet of your most private hours. This is not imagination. This is the beginning of the seer formation. And what you are receiving in this appointment, in this closed-door moment, in this specific quiet, is something of what the elder gave to Samuel, a framework, a way to understand what has been happening in the night, a set of words to use in response to the voice that has been calling, not the complete picture. The picture is still unfolding, but enough to begin the response, enough to orient toward the voice and say what Samuel said when the framework finally arrived. Speak. The one you called is listening. Let me pause here with you one more time. Let the room hold you. Let the quiet of this moment be complete. You have been on a long walk inside this message. From the closed door to the badad, from the pit to the cave, from the chazak to the sealed letter, from the reorganization to the sealed identity, from the fear to the permission declarations, to the identity marks, to the story of the one who heard in the night. That is a long walk, and you did not walk it as a casual listener. You walked it as the person it was written for. Let the walking settle. Let the truth that landed actually be in the body before the body has to go back to everything else that is waiting for it. The world will be there when you open the door. The noise will be there. The demands will be there. But right now, for just this moment more, you are here, in the specific quiet of a set-apart one who has been reading the letter that was sealed for them. That is enough. That is more than enough. Type the words, "I am ready," in the space below this message. Not because you have resolved everything or arrived at certainty or completed the formation or stopped being afraid. Type it because readiness is not the absence of fear. Readiness is the decision to move forward in the presence of fear. Type it because the seer who has been hearing in the night can now say to the voice what Samuel said. Type it because the cycle breaker who decided the pattern ends here has already made the most important decision. Type it because the spiritual warrior who is still standing after the formation is already carrying the weight that the calling requires. Type it because you are, despite everything, still oriented toward the signal. And that orientation is the only readiness that the voice is waiting for. And now the words begin to quiet. What was said has been said. What was placed in this message before it arrived to you has been delivered. And what remains is not more information, not another teaching, not another framework to carry into the ordinary world and apply in the ordinary way. What remains is the ceremony, the closing of the appointment that was arranged before you chose to attend it, the sealing of what has been opened in this hour, the sacred closing of a message that was sealed for you before it was spoken. I want to begin by acknowledging the full journey you walked just to get to this moment. Not the journey inside this message, though that was real and substantial and has done its work in you. The longer journey, the one that brought you to a place in your life where closing a door and sitting in a specific quiet for a message that named what you have been carrying was something you would do. That journey has not been without cost. It has not been comfortable. It has not been the journey that the people around you, the ones who walked easier paths to easier places, would have chosen for you if they were the ones doing the choosing. But it has been the journey that produced the person who is sitting here. And that person, the one shaped by the pit and the cave and the kazak and the badad and the stillness that the wilderness enforced, is exactly the person that the voice in the night has been calling by name. That person is seen, that journey is honored. What was built in the dark is not less real because it was built in the dark, it is more real. Because it was built under conditions that test what is real and discard what is not. And what remained after the testing, what is sitting in the closed room at the end of the long walk through this message, is the thing that is real, the frequency, the designation, the sealed letter, opening, the calling, being received by the person it was always addressed to. The source that has been with you through the formation has not been absent in the places where it felt absent. The presence was there in the pit with Joseph. Not to remove the pit, not to shorten the 13 years, not to intervene before the pit had done what the pit was designed to do, but present, working, using every dark element of the situation as raw material for the formation that the palace required. The presence was there in the cave with Elijah, not to prevent the collapse, not to spare the prophet from running to his limit, not to skip the exhaustion, but present in the specific tenderness of a touch and two words, and bread and water, and the still small voice that can only be heard when everything else has gone quiet. The presence was there in the night with Samuel, calling the name before the one being called, had the framework to recognize who was doing the calling. Not yet visible, not yet identifiable by the categories available to the boy in the pre-formation season of his perception, but calling consistently, with the patience of the one who knows that the framework will arrive, that the recognition will crystallize, that the formation will produce the ears that can hear the voice for what it is. The presence has been in your wilderness in the same way, not loudly, not visibly, not in the form that comfort would have preferred, but present, working, orchestrating the formation that the purpose required, protecting the sealed letter until the season in which the seal was ready to break. The presence is with you now, in this room, in this quiet, in the specific frequency of an appointment that was arranged before you knew to show up for it. And what I hear the Father saying over the set-apart one who closed the door and walked the long walk through this message is this: I did not bring you through the wilderness to leave you at the edge of the promised land. I did not seal the letter in you before the foundation of your story was laid, and then allow the formation to have its full work in you, and then leave the seal unbroken. I did not orchestrate the pit and the cave and the pressing and the years of Chazak and Badad, only to withdraw the purpose that made the pressing meaningful. I know the weight you have been carrying. I know the specific shape of the loneliness of the set-apart one who has not yet found their full company. I know the texture of the guilt and the weight of the success terror, and the specific quality of the 3am wakefulness that has been the form in which the still small voice has been reaching you through the noise. I know, and the knowing has not been passive. The knowing has been active. Every element of the formation has been intentional. Every season of the wilderness has been purposeful. Every moment of the badad has been the configured aloneness of a person who is being prepared for a companionship that requires the formation to have been completed. The formation is not over, but what was opaque in the formation is becoming visible. The purpose that was sealed is opening. The provision that was orchestrated is arriving in the sequence that the sequence requires. The relational alignment that was being protected in the badad is beginning its movement toward its expression. And the specific frequency of the set-apart one, the child mind frequency that was dimmed but not extinguished, the receptive state that the striving noise closed but did not permanently seal, these are returning. In the restored frequency, the letter becomes legible. In the open hand, the provision arrives. In the still small voice of the cave, the commissioning is spoken. And you are in the cave now. And the commissioning is being spoken, and you are hearing it, and that is everything. Release the weight of the seasons you survived without understanding why survival was required. Let it leave your body the way weight leaves, when the thing carrying it has been named and witnessed, and no longer needs to remain unnamed in the dark. You carried the pit and the cave, and the pressing and the guilt of the growth and the terror of the threshold. You carried the full weight of the formation without the framework that would have made it bearable. And the carrying was not nothing. The carrying was the formation itself, but now the weight is allowed to shift. The carried weight of the seasons is allowed to transform into the carried weight of the purpose, not heavier, more meaningful, not lighter, more directed. The weight is not removed, it is recontextualized, and the recontextualization is what the letter contains. Release the striving frequency, let the hand open. The child mind, whose eye has been restored by the frequency of the ancient monastic lineage, and whose hand is being opened by the frequency of the 3,300-year Vedic preservation, This child is ready to receive, not to demand, not to manufacture, not to engineer the outcome that only the one who orchestrates the sequence can produce, but to receive, the way the child receives, with the open-handed trust of a person who knows that what the Father gives is worth receiving. The hand that has been clenched by the striving noise is being opened, and the opening is the miracle. And I hear the Spirit saying over you, I hear it in the still, small voice register that only sounds this clearly in a cave. You are called. You have always been called. The calling did not begin in a moment of inspiration. It did not begin when you discovered your gifts or found your purpose or had the experience that organized everything into a coherent narrative. The calling began before any of that, before you had a name. Before the formation began, before the first season of the badad or the chazak. The calling was there in the frequency you were born at, the child mind gamma state that you ran at before the world began its silencing. The calling was in the perception that could not be fully explained by the categories available to you. The calling was in the weight you carried that was always more than personal. The calling was in the 3 a.m. wakefulness and the synchronicities and the inability to fully belong to the spaces that required you to be less than what you carry. The calling has been continuous, and the wilderness was not an interruption of the calling. The wilderness was the calling being expressed as formation. The pit was not a detour from the palace. The pit was the palace under construction. And what has been under construction in you through every season of the pressing is now approaching the season in which it becomes visible, not suddenly, not all at once, in layers. The first layer is already here. The recognition is already here. The breaking of the seal is already begun. And what continues from this point forward is the inhabited expression of what was always already sealed in you. You are the seer. You are the cycle breaker. You are the spiritual warrior. You are the set-apart one whose formation has been producing exactly what the purpose requires. You carry the child mind frequency that the ancient monastics protected and that is now being restored. You carry the receptive state that the Vedic sages preserved and that is now being opened. You carry the sealed letter that was addressed to you before your story began. And you are? In this moment, in the specific quiet of the closed door and the taken breath, and the long walk through the appointment that was arranged for you, receiving what was always meant to arrive in this season. We are the ones who closed the door. We are the ones who sat in the specific quiet of the set-apart invitation and allowed the letter to be read. We are the ones being formed in every time zone and every language and every private room where a door has been closed against the noise, and something that is not noise has been allowed to speak. Right now, as you sit in this quiet, all across the world, chosen ones are in their caves, in their formations, in their pressing seasons, and their wilderness seasons, and their seasons of beginning to hear the voice in the night. The appointment is not only yours. The frequency is moving through many closed doors. And you are not alone in this. You are in a company that does not advertise its membership, that does not gather in the places where gathering is visible, that recognizes each other not by credential but by frequency, by the specific resonance of two people in the same room who both spent time in the cave and both came out hearing something that the noise could not contain. That company is your company. And the belonging to it begins not when others see it, but when you do. And so it is sealed. What was opened in this appointment? What was spoken over this life? What was released from the weight of the seasons, and what was named in the identity, and what was commissioned in the closing ceremony of this specific message? It is sealed. not because the circumstances have confirmed it, not because the provision is visibly in place, not because the fear has gone quiet or the formation has announced its completion in any way that the external world can measure. Sealed because the voice that does the sealing is not the voice of the circumstances. Sealed because what is true in the frequency of the set-apart designation does not wait for external confirmation. Sealed because you heard the letter. Sealed because you are still here. And it is done. Before you open the door, if you are among those who recognized in this message the specific description of what has been happening in your frequencies, if what was said about the child mind frequency and the striving noise and the two ancient lineages and the restoration sequence has been landing as something your body already knew before your mind could organize it, the path is in the description below this message and in the pinned comment. Both places hold the same 3 doors. Your spirit already knows which one is yours. The description is below. The pinned comment holds it too. When your spirit confirms. There is someone in your life right now who has been unusually quiet. Not quiet because nothing is happening in them, but quiet because what is happening in them does not yet have language. Someone who has been in their formation without the words for it. Someone who has been in their cave without the company of someone who has been in a cave and survived it. Someone whose withdrawal has been misread as distance when it is actually the specific posture of a person trying to protect something being built that is not yet ready for the handling of the ordinary world. You know who they are. You recognize them the moment I describe them, because the description is of someone you have been watching, someone whose silence you have not known how to enter, someone who needed exactly the kind of appointment that was arranged for you today. Share this message with them, not to fix them, not to explain what you received, simply to let the appointment that was arranged for you also arrive for the one who is ready to receive it. Let the frequency travel through you to them. That is what the set-apart ones do for each other. If this message has been a companion in a season when companions were rare, if the words have done what words in the right frequency do for the one who needed them, join the company of those who return to this space. When the noise of the world needs the specific antidote of a closed door and a breath, and a voice that knows the vocabulary of the set-apart season, the space is here. The door is available, and the appointments continue for those who choose to keep showing up for them. The seal is set, the letter has been read, and the set-apart one who closed the door today walks out of this room carrying something they did not walk in carrying, not a new burden, a new awareness of what was already there. The formation is not over, but its purpose is no longer hidden from you, and that changes everything. There is something about the wilderness that the person in the middle of it cannot see, and the reason they cannot see it is not a defect of perception. It is structural. The thing the wilderness is producing cannot be perceived from within the wilderness, because the thing being produced is not finished yet. And unfinished things do not yet have a form that can be recognized as the thing they will become. The seed in the ground cannot see the tree. The seed can only feel the dark and the pressure and the moisture and the specific conditions of an environment that does not look like a garden from the inside. What it is becoming is invisible to it because what it is becoming has not yet emerged, but the becoming is happening. The transformation is real, the process is active, and the invisibility of the process to the one inside it is not a sign that the process has stopped. The wilderness teaches something that the classroom cannot teach, and that the comfortable path does not offer. It teaches the difference between the things that are real and the things that are supported by circumstances. Because in the wilderness, the circumstances stop supporting everything. In the wilderness, the things that were real only because the circumstances were favorable fall away. And what remains, what was real regardless of the circumstances, becomes visible by virtue of being the only thing still standing when everything circumstantial has been stripped. The wilderness is a revelation not of what is wrong with you, but of what is so essentially true about you that it cannot be stripped by any circumstance, no matter how difficult, no matter how extended, no matter how complete the stripping. What has the wilderness revealed is real about you, not what you wish was real, not what you performed as real in the seasons when performance was available to you. What has survived the stripping? What is still there when the comfortable supports are removed? That is the thing the wilderness was sent to reveal, not to punish, not to reduce, to reveal, to make visible by making everything else fall away. The wilderness is the most honest environment that exists. And the person who comes out of it with honest knowledge of what is real in them has something the person who never went in does not have. They have the specific clarity of the one who was stripped to the essential and found that the essential was enough, more than enough. That what remained when everything circumstantial fell away was not a diminished version of themselves, but a concentrated one. The discipline of the formation season is not the discipline of performing the right behaviors in order to produce the right outcomes. That is not the discipline of the wilderness. The discipline of the wilderness is quieter and harder and less visible. It is the discipline of attention, the discipline of remaining present to what is real, when everything visible is arguing that nothing is. The discipline of continuing to orient toward the frequency of the designation when the designation has no visible evidence in the circumstances to support it. The discipline of holding the gap between what has been promised and what is currently visible without collapsing the gap prematurely by either giving up on the promise or manufacturing a counterfeit fulfillment that has the shape of the tapers. Promise, but not the substance. Joseph had this discipline. Not perfectly, not without the grief and the confusion and the specific confusion of a person who knows they have a designation but cannot see how the current circumstances could possibly be part of its expression, but consistently, the thread of faithfulness running through the 13 years of invisible formation, the daily decision to show up with full presence to the place where he was, even when the place where he was had no relationship to the place he was supposed to be. The faithfulness of the Potiphar season, the faithfulness of the prison season, the faithfulness in circumstances that had no business producing the kind of faithfulness that they produced in him, that the formation was the only explanation for. Because the formation builds faithfulness where the circumstances would argue that faithfulness makes no sense. You have this discipline. I know you do, because the discipline is proven by the same evidence that proved it in Joseph, by the length of the season and the quality of what remained, by the fact that after everything the formation required, you are still here, still in the frequency, still carrying what was placed in you before the formation began. The faithfulness is not a performance. It is a reside you. It is what remains when the performance options run out, and what is left is simply the person who could not stop being who they were designated to be. You could not stop carrying the frequency. You could not stop perceiving what you were built to perceive. You could not stop being oriented toward the signal, even when every circumstantial evidence was arguing for the noise. That is not a personality trait. That is the faithfulness that the wilderness built. And it is the most important thing you have. What comes next in the story of Joseph, after the 13 years of invisible formation, is a word that arrives in a moment, not in the long, slow accumulation of the formation season, but in a single pivot point. The moment when Pharaoh has a dream that no one in Egypt can interpret, and someone remembers that there is a man in the prison who hears things that other people cannot hear. And in that moment, the pivot from the wilderness to the palace does not arrive, because Joseph prepared himself perfectly for the moment. It arrives because the formation was complete, because the character that the pit and the prison and the 13 years of Chazak had produced was exactly the character that the moment required. Because the one who orchestrates the sequence had been orchestrating not only the prison but the dream, not only the formation but the moment in which the formation would be called upon. The moment for the set-apart person arrives not when they manufacture it. It arrives when the formation is complete enough for the purpose to be safely expressed through the person who has been formed to carry it. And the formation is not complete on our timeline. It is complete on the timeline of the one who knows what the purpose requires and who has been building the character to match the requirement. The moment is coming, not as a vague spiritual promise, but as the specific structural reality of a sequence that has been in motion since before the formation began. The moment is part of the design, and the design is not behind schedule. The design is on schedule. And the one in the wilderness who learns to hold that truth in the body, rather than just in the mind, is the one who arrives at the moment with the formation intact, and the character ready, and the sealed letter open enough to speak what it contains. The set-apart one does not force the moment. This is perhaps the hardest discipline of the formation. Because the desire to be out of the wilderness is real, and the desire to see the purpose expressed in a way that is visible to others is real, and the desire to have evidence that the formation was worth it is real. And the management of those desires, the holding of them in the open-handed posture rather than the clenched fist posture, is the specific work of the final season of the formation, the season just before the pivot point. The season in which the temptation to manufacture the moment is strongest because the formation is closest to complete, and the capacity is highest, and the desire to be in the palace is most acute. This is the season in which forcing produces the most damage, because the one who forces the moment out of the formation before it is complete breaks something that the formation was still building, and the breaking requires a longer formation to repair. Do not force the moment. The moment is not being withheld from you. The moment is being prepared for you, and the preparation requires what it requires, for exactly as long as it requires it, and not a moment shorter. The one who orchestrated the 13 years knows what the pivot requires, and the pivot is coming, in the sequence, in the season, in the specific configuration that the formation was always building toward. The blessing that moves through the set-apart life does not move in straight lines. This is important to understand, not as a theological concept, but as a practical framework for reading what is happening in the circumstances. The blessing moves in a spiral. It circles back through the same areas it has touched before, but at a higher elevation each time. And the pattern that can look like repetition from the inside, the sense that you have been here before, that this territory feels familiar, that you have walked through something like this, and you are walking through something like it again, is not actually repetition. It is the spiral, returning to an area at a higher level of the formation. The same category of challenge, but the person who encounters it is not the same person who encountered it before, and the resources available to meet it are not the same resources, and the outcome is not the same outcome. This is how the three areas of the blessing reorganization actually work in real time, not as three separate events, each completed before the next begins. As three spiral tracks running simultaneously, each at its own rate, each at its own level of the formation, each moving through the same territory repeatedly, but at higher elevations. The relational spiral, the purposive spiral, the provision spiral. All three are active in the set-apart life simultaneously, and the appearance of repetition in any of the three is not a sign that the pattern is stuck. It is a sign that the spiral has returned to that area at a higher elevation, and what was not resolved at the previous elevation is being offered the opportunity for resolution at the new one. The relational spiral returns with different people carrying the same pattern, so that you can practice the discernment you have developed and discover whether the formation has produced the capacity for a different response, not to punish, to confirm, to let you feel in your body the difference between the reactive self and the formed self, the difference between the person who encountered the pattern before the formation and the person encountering it now. And what you discover in the encountering is that something has shifted. The pattern that previously triggered the reaction now produces a recognition instead. The recognition of what is happening, the capacity to name it before it has its full effect, the ability to choose a different response than the one the pattern expects. That capacity is the gift of the relational spiral at the higher elevation. The purposive spiral returns with opportunities that are clearer and more specifically aligned than the ones that came before. Not because the earlier opportunities were wrong, because the earlier encounters with potential purpose were at an earlier elevation of the formation, and the person who encountered them was still in a season where the formation was producing what would eventually be needed to carry the purpose, but had not yet produced it fully. The clarity of the purpose at this elevation is different from the clarity available at the previous elevation. What was general is becoming specific. What was a direction is becoming a path. What was a sensing is becoming a knowing, and the knowing has the specific weight and the specific edge of a thing that the formation has produced, not the weight of a theory or an aspiration or a wish. The provision spiral returns with resources and opportunities that would not have been available at the previous elevation, not because they were withheld, but because they could not be received without the formation that was still incomplete when the spiral last passed through the provision area. This is the hardest spiral for the set-apart one to understand in real time, because the provision gap is real, and the hunger in the provision gap is real, and the temptation to interpret the gap as evidence that the provision is not coming is strongest in the provision area. But the spiral is not stuck in the provision area. The spiral is building toward the elevation at which the provision can be received in its full form. And what arrives in the provision area at each elevation of the spiral is evidence, not of the full provision, but of the provision that the current elevation of the formation can hold. The covering of the small gap is the evidence of the provision of the large one, not because the large provision is not coming, because it comes in the sequence, and the sequence has not completed its circuit yet. Let me speak something over the provision spiral specifically, because I believe that for many who are in this season, the provision is the area that needs the most direct address, not the most dramatic, the most tender, because the hunger is real, and the tenderness of the one who sees the hunger is also real. And the meeting of the tender address of the hunger with the real hunger in the body of the person carrying it is one of the things this appointment was arranged to accomplish. The one who has been faithful in the formation, who has held the frequency of the designation through the years of invisible pressing, who has shown up with full presence to the place where they were, even when the place where they were had no relationship, to the place where the purpose would eventually be expressed. This one is not forgotten in the provision. The covering of what was needed in the previous seasons was not accidental. It was not luck. It was not the impersonal operation of circumstance. It was the specific provision of the one who knows what the formation requires and who covers what needs to be covered in the season that needs the covering. And the covering of the small gap was always also the preparation for the covering of the large one, the sequence, the spiral, the faithful provision that moves through the formation at the pace the formation requires. The set-apart person who understands the spiral stops catastrophizing the repetition, stops interpreting the return to familiar territory as a sign that the formation is not progressing, starts reading the familiar territory at the new elevation for what it is, evidence, evidence of what has been built, evidence of the difference between the person who first encountered this territory and the person encountering it now, evidence of the formation doing what it was always doing, which was producing a person who could move through the territory at the higher elevation with a different quality of presence, a different set of resources, a different capacity for the response that the higher elevation calls for. The formation is not repeating, the formation is spiraling, and the spiral is moving upward, and you are higher in the spiral than you were the last time the familiar territory appeared. And the higher elevation changes what is possible in the encounter. And what is possible in the encounter at this elevation is not what was possible before. The sealed letter is more open at this elevation. The child mind frequency is more restored at this elevation. The receptive state is more accessible at this elevation. The seer perception is more calibrated at this elevation. The cycle breaker capacity is more grounded at this elevation. The spiritual warrior endurance is more tested and confirmed at this elevation. You are not where you were, you are higher, and the higher is where the pivot lives. I want to give you a framework for the next season, not as a set of instructions, because instructions assume that the person following them can manufacture the outcome if they follow correctly, and the set-apart one has learned through the formation that manufacturing the outcome is not the work. The work is alignment, staying in the frequency of the designation, while the one who orchestrates the sequence does the orchestrating. But a framework for the next season is useful because it gives language to what is already happening and what is about to happen, and the language for the experience changes the relationship to the experience. The next season has 3 characteristics. The first characteristic is increasing clarity. What was sensed will become known. What was known in the body will become speakable. What was speakable will become expressible in the forms that the purpose requires. The increasing clarity is not a dramatic revelation event. It is a gradual brightening, the way the sky brightens before the sunrise, not in a single moment, but in a progression that, if you are watching for it, is already visible before the sun appears. The brightening has already begun. If you look at the last several months with the framework of increasing clarity rather than the framework of slow progress, you will recognize the brightening that has already been happening. The second characteristic of the next season is decreasing noise. The external noise that has been the loudest argument against the designation will begin to lose its power. Not because the sources of noise will necessarily disappear, because the frequency calibration of the formation will have produced a signal-to-noise ratio that changes the relationship to the noise. The noise will still be present, but the signal will be clearer. And the set-apart one who has spent the formation season learning to hear the still small voice in the cave will find that the cave skills transfer to the louder environments, that the discernment built in the silence can identify the signal in the noise that would previously have drowned it. The decreasing noise is not the absence of the noise, it is the increasing clarity of the signal in the presence of the noise. The third characteristic of the next season is increasing company. The isolation of the badad was the isolation of the formation season. The purpose of the isolation was the protection of the frequency while the formation was incomplete. As the formation completes itself, as the sealed letter opens, as the set-apart identity is inhabited rather than simply held, the frequency calibration that was achieved in the isolation begins to attract its resonance. Other set-apart ones, who have been through the formation, begin to appear. The recognition between them is the recognition that has no explanation in the ordinary categories. The sense of having known each other, the sense of a shared language that was never formally learned, the sense of the specific relief of a person who has been carrying a frequency alone and has found another person carrying the same frequency. This is the increasing company, not the crowds, the specific resonance, the small and essential gathering of those who were built for the same frequency and who recognize each other by it. The ancient practice of the set-apart people, across every wisdom tradition that has been honest about what the calling actually costs, was not primarily a practice of doing. It was a practice of being, of remaining in the frequency of the designation through every circumstance that argued for a different frequency, of protecting the signal through the noise, not by eliminating the noise, but by maintaining the calibration that allows the signal to remain audible through it. This is the discipline that the formation was building in you through every season of the wilderness. Not a set of behaviors to be performed, a quality of orientation to be maintained. The orientation is toward the source, not toward the outcome, which changes with the circumstances, not toward the validation, which arrives and departs according to the availability of the people positioned to give it, not toward the circumstances, which fluctuate according to a logic that is not fully visible from the inside of the formation, toward the source, toward the frequency that was in you before the formation began, toward the still small voice that speaks in the cave when the wind and the earthquake and the fire have passed, and what remains is the specific quality of the silence that holds the voice. The orientation toward the source is the thing that has been present in you through every season. It is the thing that pulled you toward this closed-door appointment. It is the thing that has been running beneath the surface of every ordinary moment since you were first calibrated at the frequency of the set-apart one. Maintaining the orientation does not require that the circumstances confirm it. This is the hardest thing in the formation and the most important. The orientation that only holds when the circumstances are confirming is not the formation-level orientation. It is the conditional orientation. The formation builds the unconditional one, the orientation that holds in the pit, the orientation that holds in the cave, the orientation that holds in the prison season and the 13 years of Kazakh, and the specific agony of the season in which every visible thing is arguing against the reality of what the orientation is aimed at. The orientation that holds through all of that is the orientation that was built in you to hold through all of that. Because the purpose that was sealed in you requires exactly that quality of orientation to be expressed through a person, and the formation produced exactly that quality in exactly you. There is a posture that the set-apart one who has reached the end of the formation season is learning to inhabit. It is not the posture of the one who is striving. The striving posture is a closed hand, a clenched jaw, a forward lean of the whole body into the resistance. The posture of someone who is trying to make something happen that is not yet ready to happen through them. The formation has moved you away from that posture, not all the way. The striving frequency is deeply embedded in the adult body by the decades of conditioning that the ordinary world applies. But away from it, the formation has taught the body that the clenched posture does not produce the outcome it is reaching for. That the trying harder does not make the formation complete faster. That the manufacturing of the evidence of progress does not actually produce the progress it is manufacturing the evidence of. The posture the formation is building is the open-handed one. The posture of the one who has learned to extend the hand in the receiving position and to leave it there without closing it in impatience. The posture of the one who has learned that what is coming in the sequence, and that the sequence cannot be shortened by the closing of the hand, and that the closing of the hand in impatience actually defers what the open hand would have received in the timing of the sequence. The posture of the one who has been in the cave and heard the still small voice, and knows from the inside what the absence of that voice feels like, and what the presence of it feels like. and who has learned to orient the whole body toward the presence and away from the absence. This posture is what the wealth signal is restoring, the alpha state, the receptive frequency, the physiological expression of the open-handed posture that the striving noise has been closing. Because the posture is not only mental, it is physical. The body that has been in the striving frequency for months or years has the striving frequency embedded in its musculature, in its nervous system, in the specific tension patterns that the permanent reach mode of adult survival produces. The body does not know, without specific intervention, how to move out of the beta state on its own, in the middle of the ordinary circumstances that keep producing the triggers for it. The ancient Vedic sages understood this. They did not address only the mind. They addressed the body, the sacred sound architecture that the 3,300-year tradition preserved was designed to create the physiological conditions for the alpha state to move the body out of the striving frequency at the level of the nervous system, not just the level of the intention. And the genius song, the restoration of the gamma state, the child mind frequency, is the companion work, because the open-handed body that is in the alpha state can only receive at the level that the child mind frequency allows. The suppressed gamma state produces the adult who can receive but cannot fully process what is received, cannot fully integrate the incoming, cannot fully utilize the open hand moment because the perceiving and processing faculties of the child mind are not running at the level they were running at before the silencing began. The genius song restores the processing. The wealth signal opens the hand. Both, in sequence, restore the original design. The child of light, who was born running at both frequencies. The one who could receive and process and integrate and perceive and know and create and flow in the specific configuration that the set-apart designation requires. The restoration is the return to origin. The return to what was always there before the world began its systematic dimming. The investment in the restoration is not the investment in something new. It is the investment in the recovery of something original. Something that was yours before the silencing began. Something that was yours before the formation was even necessary. The child who ran at gamma and alpha simultaneously, who perceived and received and created and wondered and knew, that child is not gone. That child is in you, beneath the adult armor, beneath the accumulated conditioning of the decades of the silencing. The genius song and the wealth signal do not create something that was not there. They restore access to what was always there. And the set-apart one who has been through the formation, whose character has been built by the pressing, whose roots have been deepened by the chazak, whose perception has been refined by the badad, this person, with the child mind frequency restored and the receptive state reopened, is one of the most powerful configurations that exists in the human architecture. The formed character plus the restored original frequency, the wisdom of the wilderness plus the openness of the child mind, the deep roots plus the open hand. I want to speak the blessing over you now, not the general blessing, not the blessing that applies to everyone in the room, but the specific blessing that belongs to the set-apart one who has been through this formation, the one who could not fully belong, the one who knew before the knowing was explainable, the one who is still standing after everything the pressing required. Blessed is the one who could not belong to the spaces that were not built for what they carry. Blessed is the specific incompatibility that preserved the frequency of the designation through the environments that would have diluted it. Blessed is the loneliness of the badad that kept the letter sealed until the season of its opening. Blessed is every moment of the 13-year chazak that built what ease could never have built. Blessed is the pit that was curriculum. Blessed is the cave that made the still small voice audible. Blessed is every night of 3 wakefulness, in which the frequency of the calling broke through the noise of the daylight hours. and reached the ears of the one being called. Blessed is the guilt that was carried for the growth, because the guilt was the evidence of the conscience, and the conscience is the evidence of the care. And the care is the evidence of the formation, having produced a person who takes their calling seriously enough to feel the weight of what it costs. Blessed is the success terror that stood at the threshold of the public expression of the purpose, because the terror was the wisdom that knew the weight, and the wisdom that knows the weight is the wisdom that can carry it without breaking. Blessed is the fear that did not stop the movement forward. Blessed is the movement forward in the presence of the fear. Blessed is the child mind frequency that the world attempted to silence and did not fully silence. Blessed is the gamma state beneath the adult armor. Blessed is the alpha receptive channel beneath the striving noise. Blessed is the original design that the two ancient lineages, Western and Vedic, preserved half of each for this generation. Blessed is the restoration that is underway. Blessed is the open hand. Blessed is the seeing eye of the child. Blessed is the seer whose perception was refined in the wilderness. Blessed is the cycle breaker whose faithfulness in the pressing is creating a new inheritance for what comes after. Blessed is the spiritual warrior who held ground when the ground was the only thing left to hold. And blessed is you, the specific, named, designated, sealed for this season you, the one who closed the door, the one who took the breath, the one who walked the entire length of this appointment without turning back, without checking out, without insisting that the territory be different from what it was. Blessed is your faithfulness to the end of the walk. Blessed is your remaining. Blessed is every element of who you are, formed in the dark, rooted in the pressing, refined in the silence, sealed in the letter that is now open enough for the beginning of the reading. The blessing is real. The formation is real. The designation is real. The sealed letter is real. The still small voice that has been calling your name in the night is real. The pivot point is real, and it is in the sequence that has been orchestrated since before the formation began. And you, in this closed room, in this specific quiet, at the end of the long walk through the appointment that was arranged for exactly you, are real. Fully real. Specifically real. Sealed letter real. And the realness of what you are is the thing that the world needs from you in the season that is coming. Not the performed version, the formed version, the real one. The one that the pit and the cave and the wilderness were always building. The question that lives at the center of every set-apart life, the question that the formation brings into focus by removing every distraction and leaving only the essential, is not a question about capability. Not, can I do this? The formation has answered that question through the doing of it, through the surviving of the seasons that the formation required, through the discovering that what was required was producible by the person who was being required to produce it. The question is not about capability, the question is about identity. Who am I at the level that the circumstances cannot touch? This is the question that the wilderness was answering all along, not the question about capability, which the circumstances can test and confirm and test again. The question about identity, which the circumstances can only reveal by stripping everything that was supported by the circumstances. The question that is answered not by an argument or a declaration or a theological framework, but by the specific residue of a life that has been through the pressing and what remained in the pressing, and what the remaining reveals about. What was real underneath everything circumstantial. What remained in you through the formation is the answer to the question, the perception that could not be suppressed, the frequency that could not be fully silenced, the orientation toward the source that held in the pit and the cave and the prison and the badad, the caring that persisted even through the seasons of being misunderstood and miscategorized and overlooked, the knowing that kept surfacing through the noise, the weight that was always more than personal. What remained is the answer. And the answer, if you let yourself hear it in the specific quiet of this closed-door moment, is that you are exactly who the sealed letter said you were. Before the formation began, before any of it. Before the pit and the cave and the wilderness, the letter had your name in it. The designation was real, and the formation was not the process of making you worthy of it. The formation was the process of revealing that you already were. There is a teaching in the book of Samuel that comes after the story of Samuel hearing the voice in the night. After the framework arrived and Samuel learned to respond, after the recognition crystallized into the capacity to hear the voice for what it was, Samuel became the one who anointed kings. The one whose perception was trusted enough that, when the human measures of kingship had been exhausted, when the tallest and the most impressive and the most obviously qualified had been presented, the voice that spoke through Samuel said, "Not this one," and they kept coming, and the voice kept saying, "Not this one," until the youngest came. The one who had been left in the field with the sheep because no one thought to call him in for the occasion. The one who had been in his own form of the badad, the designated solitude of the overlooked youngest, the one who seemed by every external measure to be the least likely candidate for the occasion. And the voice said this one. David in the field was not the obvious choice. David in the field was the formation season. The years of solitude with the sheep, the years of learning the sky and the wilderness and the specific frequency of the quiet places that the ordinary life of the court never provides, the years of developing the worship and the perception and the courage in encounters with lions and bears that the official curriculum of kingship preparation would never have included. The formation of David for what David was designated for required the field, required the isolation, required the overlooking, required the years in which no one thought to call him in for the occasion. Because the occasion he was being formed for was not the occasion he was overlooked for. It was the occasion that the formation in the field was making possible. You have been in the field. You have been the one who was not called in for the occasions that the external world was organizing. You have been in the overlooked season, the season of the designated invisibility, the season in which what is visible to the crowd was not your season, and what was being built in the invisible was the season of your actual formation. And the voice that looks past the external qualifications to the formation that was happening in the invisible places has not missed you. The formation in the field has been seen, and the anointing that awaits the set-apart one who has completed the field season is the anointing that the field was always preparing. The anointing does not look the way the ordinary world expects anointing to look. It does not arrive with fanfare or official recognition or the public ceremonies that mark the transitions the ordinary world considers significant. It arrives in the quiet, in the specific intimacy of the one who sees past the external markers to the formation that the external markers cannot contain, in the specific recognition of the seer who knows what is in the person that stands before them, not what the person has performed or achieved or demonstrated in the measurable categories, but what the person carries in the sealed letter, in the frequency, in the formation-produced depth that is visible to the one who has the eyes to see it. The anointing has been happening in you through this entire message, not as an event at the end, as a process throughout. Every moment in which what was named here landed in the body as recognition was a moment of the anointing. Every moment in which the resonance confirmed what the circumstances were contradicting was a moment of the anointing. Every moment in which the frequency of the sealed letter, the frequency of the designation, the frequency of who you actually are, in the level that the circumstances cannot touch, was recognized and received rather than doubted and deferred, was a moment of the anointing. The oil does not wait for the palace. The oil was placed on David in the field, in the invisible, in the overlooked season, in the place that no one thought to look for the next king. The anointing precedes the throne. The formation precedes the occasion. The sealed letter is opened before the purpose is publicly expressed. And what has been happening in this appointment, in this closed-door quiet, in the long walk through the territory of the set-apart life, is the beginning of the reading of the letter that contains the anointing, not the full reading. The letter will continue to open as the formation continues to complete itself and the sequence continues to unfold. But the beginning, the breaking of the seal, the recognition of the name, the hearing of the voice that has been calling by name in the night, the responding, finally, with the words that Samuel spoke. Speak, the one you called is listening. And now, before we close, I want to give you something to carry out of this appointment. Not a set of practices to perform, not a list of things to change, something to carry, a specific knowing, a specific orientation, a specific posture that, when the door opens and the noise returns, and the ordinary world re-engages with all of its claims on your attention and energy and time, will be the thing that marks the difference between the person who walked into this appointment and the person who walks out of it. The knowing is this: what is real in you is more real than what is visible in your circumstances. The frequency of the designation is more real than the frequency of the formation season. The sealed letter is more real than the external evidence that argues for or against its contents. The voice in the night is more real than the voices of the day that explain why the voice in the night should not be trusted. The formation has been real, and the formation has produced something real, and the something real is now more accessible to you than it has ever been. And the accessibility is what this appointment was always about. Carry that knowing into the ordinary world, not as an announcement, not as a claim to be defended against the skeptics, as an internal orientation, as the private certainty that holds in the body when the circumstances are arguing against it, as the still small voice register that you now know how to orient toward, that you now have the framework for recognizing, that you now have the invitation to respond to, with the words that change the direction of a life. Speak. The one you called is listening. The appointment is complete. The letter is open. The seal is placed on what was opened. And the set-apart one, who walked in through the closed door, walks out carrying what was always theirs and now knows it is theirs and will not, in the quiet certainty of the formation that produced this knowing, forget that it is theirs. Not today. Not in the next season, not in the pressure of the next spiral return to familiar territory. The knowing is sealed. It is done. There is one more thing I want to address before the seal is fully placed. The specific quality of the transition that happens when a person leaves a set-apart appointment and re-enters the ordinary world. Because the transition is its own discipline, and the formation has been building you for it. When you open the door, the noise will be there, the demands will be there. The ordinary world will not have reorganized itself in your absence into the form that would honor what happened in here. The ordinary world does not know what happened in here. It has not been in the closed-door quiet. It has not walked the length of this appointment. It has not heard the seal break, or felt the letter begin to open, or recognized the voice in the night for what it is. The ordinary world will present itself exactly as it always does, with its claims and its requirements and its logic and its resistance to the thing you are carrying. And the discipline of the transition is not the discipline of protecting yourself from the ordinary world by never fully re-entering it. That is not the calling. The calling is not permanent retreat. The calling is not the cave as permanent address. The cave is the formation environment, not the final environment. Elijah came out of the cave commissioned. Samuel came out of the night hearing commissioned. David came out of the field anointed. Joseph came out of the prison elevated. The formation environment was always designed to produce the person who goes back into the world, not as the person who went in, but as the person the formation produced, with the formation intact, with the frequency calibrated, with the perception refined, with the sealed letter open, with the knowing that is not circumstance dependent, with the orientation toward the source that holds through the noise. This is the transition discipline, taking the formation back into the world without leaving it at the door, not performing it, not announcing it, not defending it to the people who do not have the framework to understand it, simply inhabiting it, living from the frequency rather than about the frequency, being the seer in the ordinary environment without requiring the ordinary environment to recognize the seer, being the cycle breaker in the ordinary interactions without requiring the ordinary interactions to acknowledge what is being broken, being the spiritual warrior in the ordinary moments without requiring the ordinary moments to look like a battlefield that honors the warrior. The set-apart life in the ordinary world is not a dramatic life. It is a deeply rooted life, a life that looks ordinary from the outside and is extraordinary from the inside. A life in which the frequency of the designation is running beneath the surface of every ordinary moment, quietly doing what the designation does, carrying what the designation carries, perceiving what the designation perceives, receiving what the open-handed posture allows to arrive, not performing any of it, simply being it. The way the seed in the ground is simply being what it is, not performing its becoming, simply becoming. The people around you will notice something, not the formation, not the frequency, not the open seal or the voice in the night, or the child mind restoration, or the alpha channel opening. They will not have words for what they notice, but they will notice a quality of presence, a quality of groundedness, a quality of the specific calm that belongs to a person who knows something that the circumstances are not yet confirming and who does not need the circumstances to confirm it, a quality of the still small voice register, the quality of the person who has been in the cave and come out commissioned and who carries the commissioning in the body rather than announcing it in the words. That quality is the evidence of the formation. That quality is what the formation was producing. That quality is the specific frequency of the set-apart one in the ordinary world, doing the work the designation requires, carrying what the sealed letter contains, being who the voice in the night was calling by name, not loudly, not dramatically, in the quiet way, in the daily way, in the way of the person who knows who they are at the level that the circumstances cannot touch, and who lives from that knowing into every circumstance that arrives. This is who you are. This is who you were when you closed the door. This is who you will be when you open it, not different, more visible to yourself. The formation did not create who you are. The formation revealed who you always were, and the revelation, received in the quiet of the closed-door appointment that was arranged for exactly you, is the thing you carry out of this room and into the rest of the story. The formation is real. The designation is real. The sealed letter is opening. The voice in the night is calling. The anointing is in the field. The pivot is in the sequence. The provision is in the spiral. The company of the set apart is gathering. The child mind frequency is being restored. The receptive state is opening. The 3,300-year lineage is available. The monastic centuries of preservation are accessible. The gamma is returning. The alpha is reopening. The eye and the hand, restored together in the sequence, become the child first. Then receive what the child was promised. You walked in through the closed door. You are walking out commissioned. You walked in carrying the weight of the formation seasons. You are walking out carrying the formation itself, the thing the weight was building. You walked in with the sealed letter. You are walking out with it open. You walked in as the one who has been hearing the voice in the night without the framework to name the source. You are walking out as Samuel after the framework arrived. You are walking out knowing the name of the one who calls. You are walking out oriented toward the voice. You are walking out with the words that change the direction. Speak. The one who called is listening, and it is done. The set-apart journey does not end with the closing of this appointment. The appointment was a marker, a specific moment in the formation at which the framework arrived, at which the language became available for experiences that had been happening without language, at which the voice in the night was identified, and the orienting response was given. But the journey continues. The formation continues. The spiral continues its upward movement through the areas of the blessing reorganization. The letter continues to open as the sequence continues to unfold. What changes after the appointment is not the circumstances, not immediately, not in a single event that resolves the gap between what has been promised and what is currently visible. What changes is the framework, the relationship to the circumstances, the capacity to read what is happening in the formation with the eyes of the one who has been given the language for it. And the reading changes the experience. Not because the reading makes the difficult easy or the pressing comfortable, but because the reading gives meaning to what was previously only pain. The pit that was curriculum looks different from inside the framework than it looks from inside the confusion of not knowing it is curriculum. The cave that precedes the commissioning is not the same experience when you know you are in the cave as when you do not know. The cave has a name and a purpose and an exit that leads to the commissioning. You know now. You have the framework. The appointment gave it to you. And the having of it changes the relationship to every season that comes after this one, including the seasons that look like the wilderness, including the seasons of the badad and the chazak, including the seasons in which the circumstances are still arguing against the reality of the designation. You will be in those seasons again, because the spiral returns, because the formation is not completed in a single appointment. But you will be in them with the framework, and the framework, the specific language for the experience of the set-apart one who has been through the wilderness and found that the wilderness had a name and a purpose and a voice within it, is one of the most protective things that exists for the person who carries what you carry. Protect the framework, not defensively, simply by returning to it when the noise attempts to override it. By returning to the closed-door quiet when the noise has reached the level that threatens the clarity of the signal. By returning to the still small voice register, the register that you now know how to orient toward, when the wind and the earthquake and the fire are presenting themselves as the primary reality. The cave is available. The closed door is available. The appointment can be remade. The frequency of the set-apart designation does not expire between appointments, but the returning to the closed-door quiet, the discipline of the set-apart one who protects the signal by maintaining access to the specific environment in which the signal is most audible, is the practical expression of everything that the formation has been building. Return when you need to return, not because the ordinary world cannot be navigated, but because the navigation of the ordinary world, for the set-apart one who carries what you carry, is not sustainable. Without the periodic return to the frequency of the designation, the cave is not only the formation environment, the cave is the maintenance environment, the place to which the commissioned one returns to hear again what they were commissioned for, to recalibrate what the noise has distorted, to reorient what the circumstances have attempted to reorient away from the signal. Elijah returned to the wilderness again and again. The cave was not a single event, it was a practice. The practice of the one who knows that the still small voice speaks there and who builds their life around returning to the conditions in which it can be heard. Build the returning into the structure of your life, not as a burden, as a gift, as the specific resource that your designation requires that no other resource can substitute, the closed door moment, the taken breath. The orientation toward the source in the specific quiet where the noise has been asked to wait. This is not indulgence. This is maintenance of the most essential equipment the set-apart one has. The seer who does not return to the calibrating quiet loses the calibration that makes the perception trustworthy. The cycle breaker who does not return to the grounding quiet loses the rootedness that makes the holding of the broken cycle possible. The spiritual warrior who does not return to the restorative quiet loses the reserve that makes the holding of ground through the extended siege sustainable. Return regularly, not only when the depletion is critical, before the depletion, as maintenance. As the specific resource allocation of a person who takes seriously the work they are carrying and who understands that the carrying requires the quality of presence that only the closed-door quiet consistently produces. The appointment is always available. The door can always be closed. The breath can always be taken. And the voice that called your name in the night is always calling in the frequency that the closed-door quiet makes audible. You are the set-apart one, the seer, the cycle breaker, the spiritual warrior. You carry the sealed letter that was addressed to you before your story began. You have been in the badad and the chazak and the cave and the field. You have been in the formation that the purpose required. You have been in the wilderness that built what ease could never have built. You have been in the pressing that produced the compound quality that cannot be manufactured or shortcut or imitated. You have been in the 3 a.m. wakefulness and the synchronicities and the specific loneliness of the set-apart frequency that has been looking for its resonance. You have been in all of it, and you are here, still, oriented, in the specific quiet of the closed door and the taken breath, and the appointment that was arranged before you chose to attend it. The formation is not wasted. The wilderness is not the end. The cave is the precondition of the commissioning. The pit was curriculum for the palace. The badad was the protection of the letter until the season of its opening. The chazak was the building of what the purpose requires. The still small voice has been calling your name all along, and you, in this moment, know this. You have the framework. You have the language. You have the identity marks. You have the permission to be who you were formed to be. You have the commissioning. Go, not from this space into a performance of having been here, but from this space into the ordinary world as the person who was here, as the person who heard the voice, as the person whose sealed letter has begun to open, as the person who knows their name in the frequency that the circumstances cannot touch. Go as the seer. Go as the cycle breaker. Go as the spiritual warrior. Go as the child of light whose frequencies are being restored. Go with the open eye and the opening hand. Go in the sequence. Become the child first. Then receive what the child was promised. The appointment is complete. The seal is set. The letter is open. The voice has spoken, and the one who was called has answered. And it is, wholly and finally and without condition.